as I said earlier, is to make something very interactive, very informal. It's nothing formal. We want it to be very kind of also engaging for everybody to be here, spend like a good 1 hour together. We don't want it to last more than an hour because we know time is of constraints for everyone. But we also feel that being online is now the way to go about things, and for such kind of conferences, which we used to do in a bit of brick mortar way in the past. Of course, we do miss our happy hour time. We do miss our getting together, networking, but we do have some ideas about it that we're going to share with you in the coming weeks, how we can still network despite being virtually on sessions. For today, we're going to keep it quite classical, conventional, in the sense that there's going to be myself presenting today's session and the series coming forward. And I'm going to introduce James Van Widzen, who is one of our friends, good friends, and strong partner for the last 3-4 years, working with us to develop a number of strategical intents for HMT, be it on the market here or outside of Mauritius as well. And he's collaborated with us and our customers on many other journeys as well. I'll talk about it a bit more later. In the meantime, I'm just going to show you a bit what we're going to have our themes in the coming weeks. Maybe if we could just move to the next slide, James. You will see that the topics on the screen actually covers 3 main facets: new connections, new business models, and new platforms. So what are we trying to do here? At HMT, we are trying to see how technology could be part of your journey in terms of reinvention, innovation, and kind of paving a new way for strategical change within the organization. As you all know, since the last 10 months, we have been hit by what I would say is the real disruption that we always theoretically used to say in our jargon in the IT industry: disruption, change, digital transformation. All these were buzzwords, nice words, but I think what we all went through since the last year, I mean, for me personally, is a real disruption. Why is it so? Because it was something that nobody expected it to happen the way it happened, and maybe not all of us were as ready as we should have been to manage it. I think all of us in the industry, we do talk about VUCA, the VUCA concept of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But I think today the pandemic has shown us and is teaching us some good lessons as well. And we have to take it humbly. We have to take it with humility, that at the end of the day, we are just human beings with some assets of expertise and professionalism. And we try to put our experience together to kind of counter, or maybe the word counter isn't the right word, but I would say to go along with this troublesome period, to kind of find opportunities and find ways to tackle this complex situation that we are all living in right now. And James' session today indeed would be all about how do we have new pathways to a digital transformation, how technology can be used to kind of transform businesses, business models, create new connections, create new platforms, and give new business sense to what we do. Because we are all faced with the same challenge: the challenge of lockdown, the challenge of the economy stopping at a serious halt in a brisk manner. And how do we go about all this? So as you would see in the coming sessions, we're going to talk about coping with global changing dynamics. We're going to talk about how data becomes important for businesses to manage the fact that lots of companies, organizations are closed down due to the sanitary situation. The superpowers of remote managers and remote working, digital workspace, securing the dynamic workforce, the creative habits of design thinkers. I think these are things that we have spoken, we have read about, we have participated in conferences for months and years, but today time has come for us to put in practice in a pragmatic manner whatever we have learned for the last decade. I think us as technologists, as technology people, it's time for us to bring value, business value, to all these learnings that we have been embracing so far. And I must say, and I take it as an example at HMT, this has taught us a lot of humility. I mean, we have seen how We have been hit in situations where we didn't expect it to happen, as I said. And the best thing we learn to do is to accept our weaknesses, accept where we're not good at, accept where we're not ready, and try to build up from there. And I think that was the best starting point we could be looking at. And then, of course, when we talk about business models, there are diverse, different companies in different industries organized themselves or are organizing themselves differently. But how do we go about business transformation, automation? How do we go about the new normal? I was in a talk last Friday, and I did share it with the forum. I think the new normal is yet to be established. I think it's still evolving. The new normal is still very much evolving because nobody knows to what extent this pandemic will still create chaos and more changes that we need to face. So we're just at the beginning of the new normal. But the one thing that I will advocate, the one thing that I keep pushing in all my humble participation is let's not go back to the old normal. Let's be careful not go back again to the new normal. Those days are gone. We have to admit it. And that's the fear that many studies are showing nowadays, that for example, the work from home in certain places, after opening of the countries, I mean, there are people are going back to the office in the same way they used to, without bringing or keeping the changes that they've tried to do during the lockdown. And this is going back to old habits, which might not be the best ones. So this is something personally I would be advocating on for the sessions. And the new era of intelligent automation, I think there's so much happening there. And what is even more interesting, HMT, from our HMT perspective, I can confirm today that doing transformation is not as complex or expensive or costly as it used to be. We can be smarter the way we go about it. And this is what James is going to talk about today, how we can simplify this complex context. I mean, it's about simplifying this context, how we could go much smarter about this whole chaos that we are knowing. But again, let's take it positively. And of course, new platforms, we talk about making great decisions in a crisis, managed workplaces, services, agency banking for those in the financial sector, importance of security management. We can't do all this without being clear how we're going to manage our data risk. How do we think about the cybersecurity aspect? Because the more we get online, the more risk we are open at, the more our business become online, the more we need to be more secure about the data and protect our business. And of course, we have other topics with regards to different sectors and industry. So we're gonna go along all this. So not to be longer, I'd like to formally introduce James. James van der Woodsen is the managing director of No House, which is affiliated to a number of innovation captains and leaders around the world. James has been collaborating with HMT for the past 4 years, I would say, in a great manner. I mean, he's been a catalyst for HMT's transformation journey as well in terms of its business model. And we're still there. We're still on the journey with James, and we keep collaborating. That's a beauty working with James, I must say. And James has had the opportunity to work with a few groups, quite a few groups in Mauritius already, doing the same thing of assisting them, accompanying them in their transformation journey. And we thought, James, there couldn't be anyone better than James for this first session to open this series that HMT would be hosting for the next few months. So James, as I said, does provide consultancy on design thinking, innovation, service design, interactive business learning and development, and of course, change management based on his own background experience across Africa and outside in the Middle East as well. So James has an ecosystem of partner. And I personally believe, James, I mean, for me, I can only be happy that you're the first speaker, the keynote speaker for the launch. Up to you, James. Just before you start, James, I just wanted to share again with our audience and kind partners who's made it for today. I'm so happy to see the attendance. And I'd like to tell them, let's make it interactive. You've got your Q&A box. You can start pushing your questions. I'll try to take them up with James as much as we can. Otherwise, we'll be in touch with you anyways. Take it easy, it's informal. Any questions is allowed, of course, those which are allowable. I'm not saying what kind of questions, but all questions indeed are allowed. Let's make it lively, and we'll take it from there. And at the end of the session, I'll share with you what's coming next in our tech series. So up to you, James. Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you so much, Satyam, and it's so fantastic to be back, even virtually in Mauritius. It's been fantastic. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, we are going to be collaborating today. We're going to use our mobile phones to collaborate. So those of you who have not used Mentimeter yet, please go to www.menti.com. Put in our participation code for today, 97185156. Or you can just point your mobile at the screen. It should pick up the QR code. And it really is a day where we'd love you all to participate. You'll have multiple opportunities. We're going to have some polls. We're going to engage. Alain, I see there's a great question already. The paradigm shift, we're going to talk about that. What should we expect? What does normal look like after that? And absolutely, what do we do with technology and cybersecurity in this situation? And we've got some really interesting early learnings where I guess we need to balance the need to secure mobile workers with the ability that they would have to master their own new technology platforms themselves. So what a great question, Alain, and I'll try and get to that as we go. Vous êtes également le bienvenu de poser des questions en français si vous voulez, bien que la présentation soit en anglais. Je me débrouille de plus ou moins en français aussi. So we're going to get going with that, and please, good to see that everybody's logged in. We're going to keep it quite light, and Satyam, you're welcome to pop in at any moment. I know you've got great wisdom to share with us as well. But I want to start off with this quick question, and pop into Mentimeter for me. What have you learned from the pandemic? As a business person, as an individual, what have been your most important learnings? Please go for it, and let's see what the biggest learnings are that you've had, either as an IT professional, as a business person. What have you learned? Let's share some of our most important learnings. You can share them in the chat, but you can also share them on Mentimeter. Mentimeter will be good because then we can all see them popping up on the screen. Yep, bouncing back, disruption, humility, patience, absolutely. And I think the way that we bounce back, business from everywhere. What a great comment. Risk, absolutely. Uncertainty, disruption, strong people, teamwork, creativity. Beautiful, beautiful. And as you can see, our big word that we're getting there is resilience. So we're going to talk about that so much, about how we can actually get back into the resilient space as well. Work from home actually works. I think we've all been quite surprised by that. I'm going to make some introductory comments, and we're going to keep it quite light and quite quick. And please don't hesitate to ask questions and also to make comments in the chat. But we're going to talk a little bit about what we mean by digital transformation after this. And I'd love to see resilience as being the big word in the middle there that pops up. So that's fantastic to see. Flexibility, cost savings, vulnerability, bouncing back. So fantastic stuff. Yep. A majority of our processes has been digitally automated. What a massive change. Jean-Yves, I like yours as well. Opportunities. Amazing opportunities. We're going to talk a lot about that today as well. So fantastic. Great to see such an interactive crowd this afternoon. I will expect no less from the good people of Mauritius. Really can't wait to get back there and see you in person. But some really amazing stuff coming through. So I want to talk a little bit about a quote from that I heard at a webinar quite recently, and I want to know whether you agree with that. Satyam, I'm sure you've experienced it as well. 10 years in 10 months. We've really seen an incredible acceleration of digitization. We're going to have a little poll right at the end, and we got a nice prize for you as well at the end of the process. 10 years and 10 months. And I think that's what's happened to us in this period. And I think one thing that we've noticed as well is that those companies that were too early were right on time. If we think of Zoom, if we think of Microsoft Teams, it was launched a few years before the pandemic. If we think of folks that have invested in vaccine development, in biotechnology, and they have been working with mRNA formulations for quite a year. So one thing that we've learned is that you've kind of got to be too early just to be on time. And that creates an incredible dilemma, because it means that we actually have to consistently play with taking a stake in the future. And we're going to talk about that from a digital transformation perspective. And that's one thing that really struck me in this pandemic. Another thing that struck me is that we've closed down and opened up at exactly the same time. I can't fly to Mauritius right now. Probably would be quite a difficult process to get there, and I would have to spend 14 days in quarantine, even if I got there. But as at the same time as we've seen a closing down, we've also seen an incredible opening up. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I wish that each and every person at this presentation today, if you are a Mauritius-only company, if you are a local-only company, I'd like you to feel a little bit uncomfortable about that. I'd like you to think about what should happen globally at the moment. That would be really interesting. So I want to just talk about that. And this was a quote that came to me when I was preparing for these sessions. And it's quite interesting that a couple of years ago, people found that Mauritius, although it's an island, is in fact an integral, a central part of a 200 million year old supercontinent called Gondwana that includes Africa, India, South America. And I want to say that the first thing that I want to challenge you today is think about digital Gondwana. If there's one thing I think that digital transformation should leave behind, is this idea of being an island. I'd really like us to think about global opportunities, global customers, global solutions. With Satyam and the folks at HMT, we've been working in that direction for quite a while, reaching out to East Africa and other places like that. But that's the first thing, is this massive opportunity to be part of a digital continent. And I'm good to see that your processes have also been digitally automated. So what I'd like to ask you when we get into the real topic, what does digital transformation mean to you now? Just give me some ideas. What does it mean for you right at this moment? A year and a half into the pandemic, what does it mean? What would you like to speak about today if you think of something like digital transformation? Pop it into the Zoom chat or into the Mentimeter. What does it mean right now? What does it mean to you? What opportunities does that open up? Jean-Yves, I've got your great statement there about opportunities. Access systems from everywhere, anytime, anywhere, absolutely. We can work from anywhere.
James, sorry to interrupt. Is it possible for you just to share the Mentimeter details again? Because I think some join afterwards.
Yep, I can certainly do that. Let me quickly copy that from that slide, and I'll put it into chat as well. Here we go.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll pop it into the Zoom chat as well, in case anybody's lost it. Yeah. And I'll pop forward to our slide again. There we go. If anybody has a challenge, let me know and I'll share it again. Okay, seamless. Be discovery driven. I really love that. What are the fundamentals? Access to information. Multiple technologies into all business aspects. Absolutely. Technology, we were able to swap over and actually continue almost overnight as if nothing happens. Parmesh, I like your comment in the chat as well. Adaptability and continuous challenge. It is the future for business. And that I agree with. I think I love that comment. The ability to connect people and systems all over the place. And this is what we are facing at the moment. Jean-Yves, I love your comment. To reinvent ourselves and re-look the way we are doing things. And folks, we really want to see these Tech Talks as not just a one-way conversation, but also as a community. And I love this from an attendee that says, can we successfully run our businesses working from anywhere? Is it sustainable? And I think that's a conversation we need to have. What's happening to our customers? How are they adjusting and adapting? Fantastic comments and questions. Wonderful. So I want to talk a little bit about digital transformation now, thinking outside of the box. Absolutely, Parmesh, I agree with that. And the first thing I want to say is that one thing that we need to come to terms with today is that strategy is digital and digital is strategy. There is no such thing as a strategy separate from digital anymore. And I think that's one of the big learnings that we've had. We're going to end up with a poll in terms of just how quickly that digital transition is happening. But I think that's one of the big challenges for today. And I want to start this journey at a high level to think about what are the strategic opportunities for us And what are these pathways to digital? And what does it look like? And I'd like you to quickly give me a quick poll answer here. And I'd like you to tell me, if you think of digital, do you think of it as a threat or an opportunity? But more interestingly, do you think it as a threat or an opportunity for your business, but also for your competitors that are globally competing with you? Let's have a quick little voting poll. And while you're voting, you can pop your reasons for voting in that specific way into the chat. Let's see what people see.
If I may ask the audience, for those who are not connected in Menti, it's in the chat box. James has shared it, the menti.com and the code to be used. And
I've just shared it again.
Thanks, James.
I'd love to see what people say. What are your votes? Do you see it largely as a threat, or do you see it largely as an opportunity? But do you also see it as an opportunity for your competitors? I'd love to get people's views. And of course, if you've got questions about this, go for it. Yes, our global competitors are typically sitting quite pretty. They've been digital for quite some time. Good to see quite a hopeful perspective here, Satyam. It looks like most people are seeing this as an opportunity for their business. Votes coming in fast and furious. Fantastic. If you have any comments, let us know in the chat or in the Q&A. Why do you see it as an opportunity, and what is the biggest opportunity that you see at the moment?
That reflects a lot the Mauritian DNA, James. I mean, we've always been resilient. I mean, despite crises, we've been in crises, economic crises since our independence. And I must say this one that we're being hit with and at is indeed a challenging one. But we could feel in the ecosystem, in the economy, that people are not complaining, but fighting their way and finding their way. So I think this result is showing the optimistic nature of the local ecosystem.
So that's fantastic, and I'm so glad to see this. And I guess there's a bunch of realism there as well, that we are at the same time stepping into global opportunities, but we're also stepping into global competitors, right? We are no longer an island. We are part of a digital integrated world, and there are amazing threats and opportunities for both of us. I'm surprised, Satyam, to see just how low the threat number is in terms of digital. So that's really interesting. Let's have a look at what we mean by this. And I want to share with you two books. We'll share this presentation afterwards that I have found really, really valuable to think about digital pathways. The one I've been using for quite some time. I've got folks like Alvinesh on the line who knows that we've been using this model for quite some time. And we've kind of adjusted and adapted that and thinking about a digital business model. And then I found this book called The Technology Fallacy quite recently, which I find very, very interesting. And I'm going to quote a couple of things out of that. And I'd love you to, if you are able to get your hands on these books. And no, absolutely. Digital is a threat and an opportunity. Absolutely, our technology will evolve further. But that digital divide issue, Alain, I love that comment. You know, are we able to get everybody connected? And I'll share with you a case example of those countries that were already digitally connected and just how powerfully they've been able to resist this. What are the critical success factors to thrive in the new normal for small and medium enterprises who have little resources? You know, what a wonderful quote, and it's so sad that you're anonymous, because I'd love to speak to you using your name, because I think it's a fantastic question. We're going to talk a lot about that a little bit later, but one of the things, of course, with small and medium enterprises is that marketing has become a lot cheaper and a lot more expensive at the same time. That's the one piece. The other piece is that it is so much easier to digitize processes and actually scale our businesses. But when we get to the business transformation discussion one of the coming weeks, I'd love you to come back with that question, because I think one of the big challenges for SMEs is to find a scalable business model. So what a great question, and fantastic people you have on the line today, Satyam. So those are two books that I'm going to reference. We will share this presentation with you afterwards, just so that I am also giving credit to folks who've put really good thinking into that. And what I want to share with you today is two frameworks to think about. And Pamesh, I agree, agility, absolutely. Three big challenges we talk about when we talk about digital. And then I want to end the presentation with three pathways to digital transformation. Now, the challenges I want to talk about, and this comes from the book Technology Fallacy, and to say that you can see how technology is just ramping up. And I think there's been an acceleration of technology almost beyond precedent. And if we look at the three areas where people are trying to catch up, where we are trying through digital transformation to catch up, they are actually operating at different speeds. First of all, individuals having to adopt new technology. And there's really interesting information around that, which I want to share with you. Then secondly, businesses adapting. And if you think about the questions we had earlier about cybersecurity, about process, and then lastly, at a national level, assimilation. So we almost think of technology as being this rocket that shoots off into the distance. Individuals needing to catch up with the new technology, businesses needing to catch up with people are already using, and then governments and industries needing to assimilate that. And I'd really like to get some views from you in terms of where we are on these curves. If we think about the race, where do you think your company is? Do you think it's a question of your people adopting new technology fast enough? And that question about SMEs is very central to that. How quickly can we as SMEs adopt technology? And there's a wonderful other comment about folks who are concerned about customers not being able to adopt those technologies. Then adaptation. How quickly can your business adapt to the new technology? And then lastly, how quickly can businesses, countries adjust to that? So I'd like to get a quick vote and tell me, where do you think you are at the moment? Really interesting. So it looks like people adopting new technologies quite quickly. I would love to see how the votes change. Countries assimilating new technology, and companies. And I'd like you to think, when you sit at the next boardroom table, have a conversation about these three elements. How quickly are our people adopting new technology? How quickly as a business are we adapting to new technology? And as a country, as a community, as a society, how quickly are we assimilating it? And Jean-Yves, I'm quite interested in your comment there. Maybe drop me a little comment in chat. Is it at which one of those levels do you believe there's the biggest lag at the moment? Is it at a national level, at a business level, or is it at a personal level? Where do you see the biggest gaps? And what are some of the questions? Business level, Jean-Yves, absolutely. That's really interesting. And I share your view. And I think that's where one of the challenges are, is that we are struggling to keep up, actually, with, and Rishi, some good comments there, national level as well. What can we do at a national level to drive digital transformation? Now, what is really interesting and what we're seeing there, and this is one of the big learnings for me from digital transformation. Yeah.
James, if I may just step in here.
Yeah.
I think this is key what you're measuring. Us being a technology player and talking to all sectors and different organizations on a daily basis, I must say that this measurement is very revealing. And I see Jean-Yves' comment as well. I can only tend to agree with his comments there. And as much as we've seen how in crisis people have natural reflex for survival. I mean, they adopt and try to adapt, and this is human nature. It's been proven over time in history how we react when there are challenges and there are crises for our survival. So I think in terms of people individually trying to find ways and means to be digital as compared to organizations or macro level, the country, I think indeed there's a lag between the two, between our individual intent, our individual reactivity, and the macro level reactivity. I think this is where the challenge remains. And this is where we feel that us technologists, technology companies, digital companies, and everyone, we need to get together to see how we go about that. I mean, these are things that would be gladly be willing to discuss over the next few weeks during our tech series, because as you might have noticed, James, our audience is full of different sectors, different organizations, and different stakeholders who can be influential in their own spheres. and who can influence the way we can go about things. So I think that's a great discussion to have, because as I said, as much as, without repeating too much on that, we see that there is a good intention from professionals, from individuals to try to do things better, smarter, and faster. But somewhere we still stuck in a system that still thinks a bit conventionally. So I will leave it for the time being there as a take, and then we can discuss further.
Some fantastic comments through coming from you, Satyam, and also from Rishi about lack of a common payment gateway, lack of a national ID card system, adoption of technologies. So really interesting comments. And folks, I hope we can keep this conversation going and actually build a community around these conversations, because I think these are really, really interesting. And I think the point that you make, Satyam, is really interesting. And, you know, there was a time not so long ago where, in fact, people used the most advanced technology that they could get their hands on at work. You got to work and you had the most advanced laptop, the most advanced systems. And I think what's happening today, and that's what the good and the bad news is that in some ways, individuals are adopting technology faster than organizations. And there's a very, very good chance that your customers, your employees have better technology, better systems in their hands than you can offer them at work. And that's where the disconnect is coming. I've got an amazing comment here from Nishal that says that, you know, we've got folks who are not even familiar with Office 365, you know. So this is our big challenge at the moment. And a lot of organizations are rushing today to try to very quickly catch up by the commercial and social media interactions that people have and the expectations that people have developed around digital transformation based on those specific experiences. Alain's got a great comment as well. AI. What do we do with that? How do we make sure that we can leverage that? There was a beautiful comment, Alain, about from Rita McGrath the other day, where she spoke about how we should use AI to get to people quicker. And she said, actually, it's a strange thing. If we, for example, think of AI in the chatbot environment, that quite often, if you have fantastic customer service interactions at the front line, by the time people speak to someone, they are really angry because everything else has failed. So I think that the opportunities for AI are quite amazing. So that's what we're talking about, adoption. Adoption is really happening really, really quickly. Now, there are two schools of thought, and I'd like to throw both of them at you for conversation, because we obviously have an incredible, really interesting and engaging audience here. Is if you think about digital maturity versus digital transformation, which one are you more comfortable with, and how would you define maturity in terms of the digital space? Given everything that's happened, let's have some ideas in the chat. What do you think? How would you reflect on this concept of digital maturity? What does it mean? How would you say, what does a digital mature organization look like? I'm popping the Mentimeter code. Not being disturbed by changes. What a profound insight. So have that level of resilience that you are able to operate no matter what. If we look at what's happened in the beginning of the pandemic, the likes of Facebook, Apple, Google have had an unprecedented increase in their market value. Ready for change. I love that. Agility at every single level of those three aspects. Great, great comments. I love it. Keep it coming. How would you say? Ability to adapt? Yes. We're going to talk about what maturity means just now. Smartness, being smart enough. You know, if we think about the typical person, yeah, absolutely, Alain, drive new business opportunities. Can we capitalize on the opportunities? Tech savvy staff, I think it's a great comment. Element of collaboration, new tools and processes. Absolutely, intelligent systems. And folks, we're going to send you a copy of all of your comments. I think there's some fantastic stuff. We're going to send you that. Enjoying if I love your comment. I think it's really, really close to the definition that I'm working with. We talk about someone being mature as someone who is able to respond to the rapidly changing context in a way that is appropriate, right? And that's what we're trying to achieve. I love the comment about leadership, right? You know, efficiency, digital payment. So if we think about the challenges we're facing, and some really, really amazing stuff, having the ability to adjust to new technologies, being courageous to change the ways of working, some incredible insights here. And I hope as we go through the rest of these talks, I'm going to be facilitating some of them. You're going to hear about a lot of other folks in the team. Yes, Jean-Yves, I love that comment. How do we get our customers to be educated? Fantastic. So if we think about digital maturity, and if we think about what it might mean, we're basically saying, and this is from the book, the Technology Fallacy, digital maturity is aligning an organization's people, culture, and structure and tasks to compete effectively by taking advantage of opportunities enabled by technology inside and outside the organization. So this presentation was all around pathways to digital transformation. And I want to talk a little bit about that going forward. And I think absolutely, thinking as a customer, not a seller. Jean-Yves, we're going to get to that just now, but I think it's a very, very profound comment that you make. So here's two quotes from the book that I find really important. A clear and coherent digital strategy is the single most important determinant of a company's digital maturity. A key challenge for leaders is forming and communicating a coherent digital strategy. And just to come back about that comment earlier about SMEs, my experience has been that is the most challenging part for SMEs, is to think digitally, to conceptualize their business digitally, and to conceptualize their business model digitally. And here we get slowly into the pathways of digital transformation. Being effective and efficient externally, or being more customer-centric, efficient internally or externally, or more customer-centric. Those are the two vectors that we want to talk about. And that's what I want to share with you in terms of the two pathways that we speak about later. But just think about those two. Does your company have a proper digital strategy that everybody can agree on? And secondly, are you focused, laser focused on internal efficiency and customer centricity? Those are the two aspects we want to think about. Now here's a quote from Shel Nordstrom, who wrote a book called Funky Business a couple of years ago. I know I'm going to get to your quote right at the end. I'd love to get your reaction to the vote, because that's what we're going to vote in later on. And he wrote a book called Funky Business, and has just wrote a book called Corona Express. And isn't that extraordinary that the Nordic countries have come out with a 5% decrease in their GDP? Because they were able to switch at max, sometimes less than that. They were able to switch to digital because it was already there. And there's a great comment here about the new normal. And I want to talk about that just now a little bit in terms of what can we expect? To what extent are things actually going to go back to normal after this pandemic? But here we have a situation where companies were already digital before the pandemic. And I think that is our challenge, is to get into a situation and into a space where we are able to switch to digital easily and quickly. Digital payment systems, digital technology, affordable Wi-Fi, great connectivity, a national identification system where you can actually be identified. These Nordic countries were ready for the pandemic, even though they did not know they were going to prepare for them. So I'd like to get some views, and I want to ask you your question now, but I had a really interesting debate in terms of saying, where is this going? Where is this going, and how much of this is going to come back to normal? How much business travel? How much back to work? How much work from home? How much of that is going to come back? And it's so interesting. I was at a round table of executives, and the average score that people said that they expect the new normal to be compared to the way we're living now is 50%. 50% work from home, 50% less business travel, 50% more hybrid working, 50% more video conferencing. But I'd like to get some views. What can we do to lobby for a more tech-friendly Mauritius? What are some of your ideas? And Shatyam, I'd love to get your views. If you're sitting at the top of a technology company that is actively working with government and lobbying, what can we do to lobby for more assimilation of technology in Mauritius?
I think we got a few hints even from the audience earlier, and I think we spoke about it, James, over time. There's one thing that is very much lacking, unfortunately, in a country like Mauritius, despite us being a small place and still sophisticated in terms of economic structure. I think there's a lack of synergy, talks, and discussions across sectors. And we have enough of business associations, we have enough of forums where we could actually come and rethink Mauritius, rethink a digital Mauritius with a proper blueprint. And I know yourself and myself, we have been engaging at different levels to bring those initiatives. But I think today, the way things are evolving and the way things might evolve in the coming months, there are, of course, certain I would say, element of uncertainty, and where people are kind of, in some places they have visibility on what's going to happen in their own sector. In the cases they don't have necessarily a visibility, but all this is putting the pressure on the people that needs to take decisions, basically the decision makers, to find ways and means to come to the table and discuss in a I would say, collaborative manner, right? And for us to be able to have our input and our I would say, share insights, I think coming to the table together with humility and putting all the cards on the table is what is left for Mauritius to bounce back where it needs to be. So, and this is the whole purpose of us running the tech series as well. There'll be more participants in different sessions on different topics. And for us at HMT, I believe that until we all get together and co-create that tech-friendly Mauritius, it's not going to happen. It can't be everyone working in silos or in an isolated manner in their own spheres or corners. It has to be, I mean, everybody has to come and just give. It's not a matter of what's in there for me, it's what's in there for everyone and what potentially we could get in for us. I think time has come for us to be, I might use the word which might be a bit harsh or hard, but I think it's worth saying it. I think it's no more days where we're going to look only at our pockets, our selfish motives. It's about us really going in and giving in and trying to create something good for the whole ecosystem, which in the end will impact good on everyone. This is how I see the philosophy of co-creating and collaborating. It's time for us to give in more, to invest more from our side, and surely for a better Mauritius, for a better ecosystem. This is, James, broadly what I think the mood and the philosophy should be.
That's fantastic. And I love that one about making a forum that can actually create proposals for change. And folks, maybe we started today. Maybe this is part of what we can do, right? I got some really interesting themes. Security coming up, education coming up, internet governance coming up. And these are all really interesting topics. And I think we can pick up on a lot of these topics going forward, Satyam, in terms of what do we need to do to make this happen. But I think there's some really amazing stuff. Modernizing the way we do strategy. I love that. We've got a whole session coming up around business transformation where we're going to look at that. So I hope to see a lot of you over there. But I think this is where the conversation starts. And I really have to give HMT a lot of credit for starting this conversation. So good stuff, folks. Excellent, excellent stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about the pathways to digital transformation. And, you know, I've been working in this field for some time, and I think quite often we can really become quite overwhelmed with all the technology. There's blockchain, there's AI, there's sensing devices, there's all kinds of things. But what does it really mean for our businesses? And I was so touched by that comment about, well, how do we explain this to an SME? How do we explain that to someone who's currently running a small business? And I just want to share with you my thinking at the moment in terms of what I believe the three main pathways are. And it's somewhere derived to some extent from the work from the guys on the digital business model side, but also adjusting it and adapting it to the African context that I work in. And I want to talk about three stages. And there's a great book out by Alex Osterwalder called The Invincible Company. I'm going to pop it into chat here for you. For those of you who have read it, I'm sure you've enjoyed it as well. And we're going to talk about that a lot when we talk about business model innovation. But I'd like you to think in your business in terms of where can digital do the most good. Can it do the most good in this front stage area where you are serving the customer Is that where you can really pull the rabbit out of the hat and really have impact? And we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. Is it possibly the backstage? And the reason why I put that little girl from Disneyland, you know, in Disneyland they've got a what they call the magic phone. You know, so if you're working as a frontliner at Disneyland, you can pick up a phone at any time and you can call Mickey over if a little girl wants to meet Mickey. And that has to do with how you build everything behind your employees to deliver digital magic from the backstage. And then, of course, the most ambitious one is to say, we would like to digitally enable both of those components, both the front stage, the backstage, and the ecosystem. And what does that look like? We have a starting point here, and what does that look like? So I think the first thing we want to think about is, where do we want to be strongest? Where do we really see the best possible value? Do we want to offer the best digital customer experience? And there we're talking about digital theater, not innovation theater, digital theater. How do we create an environment where the customer feels recognized, reassured, rewarded, and retained every single step of the way? Whether I go into a branch, whether I go online, whether I access it with a mobile device, or whether I phone a call center, I have this amazing customer experience. And that's one pathway to think about, is to say, how do we put all of our digital capabilities on this ability to major in customer experience? The next piece we can do is to say, how do we major in employee experience? How do we become the place where employees can get things done the most easily? And that's got to do with equipping, engaging, enabling, and exciting your employees. And folks, it is a reality that in many organizations, it is easier to apply for a job at another company than it is to apply for a job in your own company. Now, those are two vectors. On the one hand, how do we integrate everything inside the organization to give people the best possible experience of getting things done? On the other hand, how do we create the most compelling customer experience? And then, of course, the most ambitious one is to say, we would like to be a digital marketplace. So we would like to have an opportunity for both sets, both buyers and sellers, partners, to come together in an ecosystem. A lot of banks are trying to step into that space. A lot of fintechs are stepping into that space. You've got this amazing example in Mauritius of FundKiss, who's actually pulling together two value propositions at the same time. And what I'd like us to think about is, if you think of your business, where do you think the biggest potential is for you in terms of a pathway? What is the ambition of your company? If you had to say, our company is going to drive digital transformation from this pathway, where would you say your biggest focus is in your business? Where is your biggest drive? Is it in improving customer experience? Is it in improving the employee experience and the internal integration? Is it around doing both? Is it around bringing partners and customers together in a digital marketplace? I would love to see, and I know that's really what you're talking about, bringing the objectives together with an effective strategy and saying, it's not just about digital what, but digital why. Why are we doing this? So I would love to see what you are, where your company is currently focusing. And then I'd like to get a sense of how successful has your company been. So far, customer experience, big focus at the moment. Some folks, employee experience. Yes, treat the customer the way you want to be treated. Absolutely, Jean-Yves. If we enable people to deliver magic, then we create the opportunity for them to retain our customers. So if we look at it at the moment, we can see that to a large extent, when people think about digital transformation, they think about digital transformation of the front stage rather than the backstage. And there are incredible opportunities using blockchain, using AI, using sensing to actually deliver an incredible integrated employee experience at the back end. I'm going to let this run for a few minutes, but I'd love to get your comments in chat. Why did you decide that the focus on customer experience is the one that you think is the most important one? I've got a great answer for Jean-Yves already, but and keep the questions coming. We're going to finish off in a few minutes and hopefully get some questions. I hope we're not running too late, Shatyam.
I I think it's manageable, James. I mean, it's interactive, and instead of us using the last 15 minutes, which we planned for the Q&A, but the Q&A is happening as you're doing it, so we can. You're already taking the questions and comments as it's coming, so it's fine.
Perfect. So, folks, I'd like you to be very, very clear about what it is you are trying to achieve, and I'd like you to be very clear about what the driver for digital transformation actually is. And I want to just share a couple of ideas with you in terms of each one of those areas. If you're in the game of customer experience, privacy and trust are the next big thing. The more digital you become, the more privacy and trust becomes important. What's really interesting is customers will engage and do administration, but they will do it once. Delphine, I agree with you. Best customer experience, we've got to give our people the best tools. Engage via gamification. And that links to that question that I spoke about earlier. Neglected customers are a gold mine. There was an assessment the other day in the US about the single group with the highest discretionary purchasing power. The one group in the US that has the biggest control over the wallet of household incomes. You know what that is? Retired females. Retired women have the biggest control of share of wallet in the US in terms of being able to choose spend. Those are some of the concepts in terms of that area of digital transformation. If you go to the bottom right, you might find that your best people are not working for you. A lot of companies are realizing now that we need to tap into a global talent pool, become part of global ecosystems. And in that sense, security can be a huge hassle, but it can also be a huge benefit. Do you have a strategy to get the best global talent, whether it'll be small businesses, startups, and so forth, to connect with you? And then at the top, harmonizing two value propositions, a customer and a supplier value proposition, like we have in the most successful stores such as Amazon, the e-store, those kinds of things. Features can become products. So you can actually unbundle a component. Look at Dropbox. Dropbox has taken out a piece of the offering and made a product out of it. And communities are the next big thing. Communities beat companies. Peloton turned their their physical business of providing treadmills and providing exercise bicycles into a community while pushing up their prices, and were able to grow massively along the way. So, one thing I want to leave you with before we have a few minutes for questions at the end is every decision you take today has a net present value. It has a value now, absolutely, but it also is a stake in the future. If we don't know what's coming, our digital strategy should give us a stake in a whole lot of different opportunities and investments. So, comments and questions. But while we do that, I want us to do a quick little poll. And I know this links to your poll earlier. Put your name in because we want to see who wins. There's going to be a prize from HMT, a 1-hour consultation on digital transformation. So put your names in. Once I've got everybody's names, I'm going to start. And the first person to give the right answer will be the winner. But keep the questions coming anyway in the chat and in the Q&A while we get going. I've got about 19 people out of the 60. If you want to be in for the competition, please pop your name in the chat. And as soon as I press enter, I want you to answer that question and we will see who was the winner. In the meantime, if there are any questions, please feel free to pop it in. You've got to do it in Mentimeter. Put your name in Mentimeter, unfortunately, because we're going to ask the question there. We've already got about 23 contestants. If there are any questions, please pop them into chat. I'll be happy to hang around a little bit more. I know people have a hard stop. I'm going to let it run for another minute or two. And then we are going to start the countdown and we'll see who is first with an answer of the question. We've got quite a lot of participants already. Thank you for staying to the end. And please, if there are any questions, I don't mind staying a couple of minutes more if folks have questions they want to ask. Apologies for running a little bit close to the time. Are we ready, Shatyam? Should we pull the trigger? Right.
Yes, we can do that.
Let's see who is first. That comes to your question earlier, I think, Alain. What percentage of products and service will be partially or visually digitized by 2021? Let's see who won. You are right. 55% will be partially or fully digitized by 2021. Let's see who's won. Who's the number one on the leaderboard? Etienne, you are not eligible. So
I was just testing the system.
So PJN, who is PJN? Who is our first legitimate? PJN, just put your name into chat. You have a 1 hour free consultation. Open for questions, folks. I hope you enjoyed the session today. Please give us your questions. Pravin, fantastic. Pravin, Nair, we'll get in touch with you.
We've got a few questions. Maybe we can give ourselves like 10 minutes if the audience is okay with that. I think there's a question that is on everybody's mind for quite some time. How sustainable is working from anywhere? How sustainable and how realistic is that be in the long run?
Shatem, interesting question, and I think we answer it in a strange way at the moment, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about the remote management superpowers. But what we have found is that it is sustainable for people to do asynchronous work from home, and it will probably happen more and more and more. But we need the connections and the presence of each other for synchronous stuff. So there's a lot of learning we can do online, there's a lot of collaboration we can do online. But there's something strange, and there was a beautiful comment by Shell Nordstrom the other day, and says, why will cities still continue to be important? And he said, because we actually communicate so much more than we know when we are together. And so I think that offices will become meeting places, and work from home will become the place where you do your deep work, your asynchronous work. But we'll talk a lot more about that when we go into the remote work session. Any other questions, comments, folks? Please go for it.
Yeah, I can see another anonymous attendee talking about how would SMEs tackle. You did mention earlier a bit about SMEs potential and capability to adopt new technologies. Yeah. If I may comment on this quickly, James, as I was saying earlier, I mean, we can easily say today, being exposed to what's available as tools and possibilities and as creativity today, I can say that technology is indeed at the reach of everyone. It's not that complex anymore, despite it looks complex. And as we used to say, we need to be very simplistic when situations are complex. And in terms of course, also it's all about how we design, how we conceptualize, and how we plan ahead. So I think these are discussions we'll be more than happy to have with those in that segment of this of the ecosystem. But that's my quick comment on how SMEs could adopt. Actually, I believe they would be the one that could adopt more quickly and faster than the rest, and they can benefit much quicker than the others. I don't know what you'd like to add to that, James.
Absolutely, and I think that's a fantastic conversation for us to have. I would actually say that there's a great comment from Nishal as well in terms of they've moved towards cost savings and they've actually cut costs, and I think that would be a tragedy. But I think what we should do is put an SME technology forum together, Shatem, and have those conversations, because I think one of the limitations that I see with SMEs quite often is that they think only within their own current business model. And folks like Alex Osterwalder says, your business model is going off like milk in your fridge. How can you as an SME think about a global, scalable business model? And we're going to talk a lot about that going forward. But for me, that's one of the biggest challenges. And as folks who are in this field and everybody who is part of this conversation, have a conversation with someone who's running a struggling SME and think about what can they do in the front stage? How can they deliver a slightly better customer experience, even if it's using social media for it? How can they automate a little bit on the back end? And how can they actually survive by changing their business model? Very, very valuable. Other comments, questions, folks? And thank you so much for such a large group of people joining us. I hope you've enjoyed us. Pop us a comment in chat. Let us know how it was for you. I certainly enjoyed the conversation.
If we could move to the slide of the coming themes in the meantime, if ever we have some comments coming in. There are quite a few, but they are quite similar to the subjects we covered earlier. So I think we for today's session, I would say, is going to be very generic in terms of the information we wanted to share about the pathways, and at times could be some jargons would be new to the audience, but James is here. We are here to kind of share further, a deep dive into those new concepts. Surely most of you has gone through it already in your own learnings and readings. So to close off on my side, first of all, let me thank the audience who has been very interactive and engaged, and that's one great thing. And James, as usual, you make it fun. And thanks for that. And you'll be there with us for the coming sessions as well. The team will be here. And the next sessions coming, as I said earlier, would be about the coping with global change and dynamics with regards to AML and data, with regards to policies for the financial sector, and the superpowers of remote managers and digital workplaces. I think these are subjects that will be of great interest. So our team at HMT will be in touch with all of you with details and schedules of those events in the next few hours. By tomorrow noon latest, you're going to start receiving the invites for the next sessions. We're going to try to make it as short and sweet as possible, because we know time is always of constraints. We're all rushing in all corners, and we'll try to make it as rich as possible and as succinct as possible. And as I said, those who want to engage separately of those sessions, we are more than open. This is part of our job. This is what we do, and we'll be more than happy to pursue further in detail your needs and your kind of plans that you'd like to bounce with us. So that's it from my side. James, I'd like to thank you all again for being here. Really encouraging for us to see the participation, and we'll make it even better and more exciting in the coming weeks. Thank you all.
Yeah, Satyam, I think we have the recording of the session, right? I think we did record it from the beginning. Just let me know, because there was a request for that from Delphine. Great questions coming in about technology inequality. And folks, let's keep the conversation going. Alain, thank you so much for your comments and questions all the way through. I really enjoyed it. It felt almost like I was back in Mauritius a little bit there, Satyam. Next time I'm going to put some palm trees and some sand in my office, and maybe someone can throw a coconut onto me while I'm doing it. It's been so fantastic to connect with you. Thanks for the fantastic comments. A pity we couldn't get to all of them. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I'll be facilitating these sessions, but you'll get some real technical experts. Please pop in, spread the word if you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for the invitation, Satyam and the team. It's so great to be working with you again.
And James, as you said earlier, it would be great if you could share the report of the Mentimeters with us. We will share it with the audience who are present today. It would be good and insightful for them.
Fantastic. And we've got the recording to share as well, I believe, Satyam.
Well, the recording will be posted in the next few minutes on our Facebook page. It's already live, and within the hour it will be boosted on Facebook.
Excellent. I will send the presentation as well, so we have all the comments and it can be uploaded at the same time. Thank you so much, folks. Fantastic being in Mauritius. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you all. Thank you for being there. Cheers. Bye.